get to your positions, intercept the target, and eliminate by any means possible.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Briareo Skarensky here, and today I bring you Kokuga for the 3DS. The game has been made by G.Rev, that some of you might remember for Senkono Ronde, Under the Feet and Strania. Yes, they specialize in shot 'em ups, and every time they try to bring something new to their games, though their efforts are not always successful. In Kokuga, the player controls a tank, able to fire in all directions, and in the vast majority of stages, the scrolling is controlled by the tank's movement rather than being forced. The tank's turret can be rotated by L and R. The B button is used for shooting. Movement is via the analog or digital pad, the one you prefer. The analog pad feels better due to the nature of the movement system, though the speed is always the same. In Kokuga, the player's tank is a far cry from the usually nimble ships of this kind of game, to the point it almost feels sluggish. The game does not move at a breakneck speed either, which is a common aspect in G.Rev shooters. The director is none other than Hiroshi Yuichi, the man behind Ikaruga and Radiant Silvergun among many others, so don't expect bullet hells here. Just like movement, the standard shoot is low, and in many situations and against bosses, it will be necessary to access the power-ups available on the touchscreen. Power-ups are presented as cards, and they are randomly placed in 4 sets at the beginning of each stage. There are offensive cards like Laser, Twin Shots, 3-ways, Rapid Fire, defensive cards like Shield or Energy Recover, and a few types of Smart Bombs. As these cards are shuffled, there might be instances where none of the selectable cards is really useful for the current situation. But as the game rhythm is moderate and favors a methodical approach, this never makes the game feel cheap or frustrating. Kokuga could have used a more refined control scheme though. The turret rotates very slowly and it's difficult to line up long-range shots. Reaching power-ups on the left side of the touchscreen makes movement difficult, and in a shot 'em up this is something you want to avoid. Mapping turret controls to the touchscreen, shooting to the shoulder buttons and power-ups to the face buttons would have been probably better, and it would also have allowed for a faster, more engaging game. Not that I can complain much about the actual speed, I do prefer more calm, if you will, shooters, but there are times when Kokuga feels too slow. Another problem is the absence of a scoring system. Sure, there is a point counter, but there is no multiplier or combo system in place, which is extremely disappointing, especially when Kokuga's main focus is getting the highest score possible, and stages often feel built around the possibility of racking up huge scores with multiple deaths at once. There are 12 stages, A through L, arranged in a triangular pattern. Think Darius, but all are accessible from the beginning. Completing one of the standard stages will let players take on nearby tiles, and if one final stage is near, attempt it. Each stage has 4 difficulties: Normal, Hard, Ultimate and Boss Rush. Again, freely selectable. Stages are laid out as mazes, so most of the times there is more than one way to its end. All stages are divided into sections with non-respawning enemies, and the destruction of every one of them before going to the next section will give a small bonus, which is the only nod toward a complex scoring system. Enemy selection isn't particularly varied, but stage layouts, the way enemies are positioned and how their attack patterns work, more than make up for it. Bosses are original for each stage and are very interesting, forcing players to make the best use possible of all available power-ups, and being more than just the usual shoot the core affair. Kokuga might not be the fastest game around, but it surely doesn't lack challenge. There is little to no story, the game must be played for the sole purpose of clearing stage in the best way possible. To many this might sound as a rather feeble point, but that's what shot 'em ups are all about. Unfortunately, Kokuga feels incomplete and lacks the refinement of the best game in the genre, and it's possible to be left roaming levels with nothing to shoot, trying to find a way out. In fact, it can also be said that part of the challenge comes from an immature control and power-up system, with some enemies and bosses able to outrun the player's movement no matter how, and this sensation always hovers above the game. It doesn't make the game unplayable, but it frustrates me when thinking how great Kokuga could have been with some more development time. This is not to say that the game is bad, but it could have been a lot better. As it stands now, Kokuga is average. The presentation is a hit and miss. The soundtrack is wonderful and really stands out. It is the work of Manabu Namiki, another well-known and respected shoot-'em-up composer, and fits incredibly well with the graphics. In some stages the soundtrack is just perfect, highlighting intense moments while building up an imposing crescendo. It's disappointing that sound effects aren't up to it, but they are serviceable. Graphics are very simple and in the normal stages almost monotonous. Every object is represented with few polygons, yet their textures are sharp and never pixelated, unless speaking of very large structures. The low polygon count allows for lots of enemies on screen and a constant frame rate, and some spectacular explosions, even for the smallest enemy. It might not be the prettiest shoot-'em-up around, but it's very clean, with no spots left for projectiles blending with the background. Again, backgrounds could have used some more variety, but this don't stop them for being interesting, especially with the 3D slider set to maximum. The overall effect is subtle, as many 3DS games, but the clever use of perspective and scale enhance it even more. Kokuga also supports a 4 players mode, but sadly I can't really comment on that. There is little text and most of it is in English. The mechanics are straightforward, so the game is import friendly, 3DS region lock notwithstanding. Kokuga is worth a try, but stands on a dangerous middle ground. It offers a nice challenge, but no scoring system, things that can turn away both casual and hardcore fans of the genre. It's an average game, nothing more, and this is kinda painful when considering that some of the developers had an impressive resume. But that's it. Thanks for watching, Briare Oskarensky, over and out.